Welcome to Season 5 of the Color Success Podcast, where we talk with guests from AAPI and ethnic minority communities and have real discussions about mental health and what success looks like. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. Before we get into it, remember to subscribe to our mailing list for free at colorsuccesspodcast.com so you don't miss any updates. There, you will find our socials, YouTube channel, and all episodes on streaming platforms for great additional content. Today, I have a wonderful human being on the show. Kauri Mowll is a motivational speaker, mental health expert, and men's mental health advocate. As a certified professional life coach, his greatest passion is empowering others to live life on their terms, fulfill their potential, and embrace their greater purpose. He is committed to empowering and equipping men globally with the tools to courageously share their unique voice, their story, and their subject matter expertise. This episode would not be possible without the support of the Gray Wall, which aims to provide men with safe spaces to examine their own wellness and open up about their mental health needs. Mental illness among men is a public health concern that begs attention. The Gray Wall is dedicated in improving social norms around mental health among men by firstly, enhancing education surrounding men's mental health and wellness. The Gray Wall was founded to provide extensive education and programs dedicated to men who are often overlooked in the space of mental health access programs. Kauri, welcome to the show. How's everything going?
Loving life, Dr. Mowll. How you doing, Dr. Stephanie?
Oh, I'm doing great. So it's such a pleasure to share this time with you. I'm wondering if you can just share your amazing journey to becoming a content creator and working on men's mental health.
Well, the major part of the journey started, I had a lot of loss and a lot of death. And those two things, those are the things that punish men often with their mental health.
Yeah.
They've either lost something or people are dying around them or people being taken. And I lost my brother, I lost my marriage, I lost my father. I mean, so many things, so many losses. And in doing that, I was able to, I had been teaching people the process, right? But I didn't fulfill it myself with this human skin.
Mm-hmm.
So once I went through and finished the process myself and saw how it worked and pulling myself back together, I was able to reach out to other men and other people, right? Like, and realize what the bigger focus was. The biggest focus is humanity. And that's what I started learning from all of it. Like, okay, the more I insert myself into humanity, the more humanity actually gives back to me.
You're speaking of connection, which is a human need. And I think the pandemic has showed us more and more that that's what people need.
Yes, because we walked away. All of these people that came before us, they were steps. You have Martin Luther King and all these big names, but they were steps for integration. But we've been stepping back towards independence, and independence, we can't do it alone. And men in general, you know, we're looking at them, showing them now how not to do it alone, right? But we lost that in the culture somewhere once we came out with TV and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's independent watching TV. I mean, guilty. So,
awesome.
Yeah, thinking a lot about men's mental health, and I mean, what are some of the barriers do you feel are out there to actually expressing and addressing this huge issue?
Well, the biggest barrier when it comes to men's mental health is there's an invisibility of it, right? Like, because when we're brought up as men, it's like, be strong, be tough, do this.
Don't
You're
cry.
a man. Don't cry. You're a boy. Get up, right? It's never like, let me help you up. Like on the female side, generally speaking, it's more of a nurturing, like, oh my gosh, you fell.
How are you feeling about it?
Yeah. Are you okay? But the boy is like, you're taught to be strong. So this invisibility that has merged itself, you can't see it. And then men have, like I said, from the top, I'm big on the integration. Men stop integrating with each other to actually gain knowledge and moral fabric and self-discipline. They stop doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that, see, when that was going on back in the day, men were learning how to comfort, right? And and have that just love for one another. But now that independence of man, the independence of men in general, and just being alone, they've gotten used to being alone, but solitary confinement works for no.
So obviously, there's so many socio-historical factors that kind of go into that. You mentioned TV and streaming as one of them, but in our communities, what do you think can help facilitate this integration, this connection when everyone is kind of holding everything in within themselves?
But we have to learn how to talk to one another again, right? Now, I'm not saying communication.
Well,
Let's
truly
communicate.
hearing people. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like
Active
let's
listening. Yeah.
or just learning how to talk to one another. I mean, I go outside now, you hear people yelling their words at each other,
Mm.
right? Hey, all of this anger, right? And it's like, you can do that at a lower volume. Mm. Anybody ever told you about, like, the stuff in between 0 and 100, those numbers, and just learning that concept, like, let's be considerate, right?
Sure.
But it takes people like, and with a guy like me, I was a guy from the hood,
Mhm.
right? And I'm big on, like I said, I hear people on one side of the fence, well, there aren't any white people in the hood, or no, that's not true. When you go down there, they live together. And because everybody's on an equal playground, they have to work together. They don't get a choice in not working together.
Mhm.
So when we go down and start showing our love and giving support and showing the people up top how to support these people, like they are not, our mental health people, even the guy, you could have great money and your mental health is so low, and you're no
Oh, yeah.
different than those guys on the street. You're no different. You all have the same outlook. How can I stop the pain? How can I get out? But it takes guys like me and guys like me to create more guys like me, people like you, to push this and say, look, man, first of all, we're going to start showing you the how in all of this. There's a how to speak to people. There's a how to have feelings. There's a how to be disciplined, and there's a how to self-control.
Well, I was also wondering too, because people say, be a man, right? And you mentioned all these phrases, be strong, don't cry, all these kinds of things. And so just to give your conceptualization of what is a healthy man that sets a good, you know, that is a good role model to folks as they're coming up.
A healthy man.
This is a very
Like,
easy question, Kauri. Like,
it's a very easy question, right? Bang, bang. Okay. No, this is the deal. I mean, everybody wants to know what is a good man, what is a healthy man, what is a healed man, right? All of these definitions that have been distorted,
Yeah.
right? So actually, you need to look at a man, the men that are strengthening what remains of the old self. That is the man you're looking for. That the not the man necessarily on the right and wrong, on the good and bad, but the man that is on the right and wrong. The good and bad is just so you'll know how to judge. But the man that is walking in the right premises, they used to have a word called righteousness, and they used to have a word called class. They don't really use that anymore, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see that man, and a lot of these men, these men are now, they're becoming fixed men. Now, it's still a lot of hows because they're healed already, but they need therapy in life. And they're going to therapy kind of for the wrong things right now. You know, it's like an open heart. If you had an open heart transplant, right?
Knock
And
on
you had
wood.
chest pain. Yeah, if you had chest pain, are you going to go to the doctor and want them to tear open your chest and look at the arteries that they fix? Or do you want them to maybe do some lab work? Or, you know, you might have gas or something. Who knows, right? Who knows? But we're not going to keep opening up old wounds to heal. Those were closed for a reason. So now we need to learn how to have therapy through our rest of our life and move through that way, right? Some people, guys just need therapy and communication, but there's no pill for that.
No.
So, or therapy and learning how to ask people questions or saying yes or no answers. Therapy, and here's the biggest therapy of all, therapy and telling the truth. When you learn how to tell the truth, your therapy automatically will be at 90%. Everything else, then you have little work to do once you understand the truth of who you are and your surroundings.
So you're also talking about accountability, because people really have to take some ownership or sense of control over the direction that they're going. So how do we facilitate this within an individual from the people that you work with? But also we can go micro and then macro.
Wow. Well, with accountability, right? I mean, who says that? First of all, you have to know your place to be accountable. So we try to force accountability on people, but are we accountable for their actions? Right?
Yeah.
So the first thing we have to start teaching people is that you're the reason why you, right? Where most people, they'll say, well, the reason I got fired is because, Earl was over here and he bothered me and pissed me off, and then I had to say something. That's why I got fired. No, that's not why you got fired. You got fired because you thought you had to say something. So we have to start breaking people down and actually telling them the truth, like calling them out a little bit. We tend to not call people out because it's going to hurt their feelings. This is micro and macro. This is the whole enchilada. The thing is just saying, like, like, hey, Dr. Wong, hey, Dr. Stephanie, look, your chair actually is about to break, and you just, instead of just having you sit in it.
How did you know? Put some double-sided tape on it.
Right. It's like we have to take ownership of humanity as humans. Like, this is one of my questions I ask people. Who gets the biggest problem? Who is the one at fault the most? If I know there's a hole there, and then I let you run into it without any kind of warning, and I know people break their legs, lose their family, lose their job, lose their house, lose their income, and I let you fall in it, who's more at fault? But we don't ask those moral type of questions anymore. And we have to start being accountable and showing how to do this. Like, look, man, look inside of yourself. Stop blaming other people and stop blaming your shame. And then, once people get it, it feels good. They just have to know the feeling. It's gone. It's an old generational mindset, but it's all deep within us. We really want it. We want to be accountable. We're just afraid now because, like, social media has made our view of people so broad and so big, we're afraid of how we'll actually look.
I mean, it's all a lens. that we're seeing people through. One of the big things that I get, though, working with so many ethnic minority clients is this idea of systemic racism, because there's one thing about working on oneself, but how does that intersectionality work with kind of this model of taking accountability and not blaming other people, so to speak?
A lot of that's right now, we run with the fear of racism at this point. We live in a fear of it. Well, I was working here and this white gentleman didn't like me, so I'm mad, and that's racism. We get a lot of racism and classism confused, you know. And then we have prejudice inside of ourselves that we just don't want to admit to. And it flaws us. So, one of the big things is getting to a point, like when I deal with people of color, because I'm not fully of color, right? So I'm like, look, man, I had a white father over here. I want people to understand that color doesn't matter, because I can't see the color of your brain. I can't see the color of your soul. And a lot of these color issues, I mean, I listen to a lot of people, and I've been in places where I've been the only Black man. I worked in Seattle, only Black male, 10 floors of hospital. And I was treated certain ways that were cruel and that were in a racist environment, a racist section, but then a lot of it was classism. So I started understanding the difference. And then what we do, I had a Korean friend. I have a Korean friend. He's my best buddy ever. Now, when I met him, these were his exact words to me. I don't like Black people. I don't like soldiers, and I don't like Americans. So
I laugh, but that's like very extreme, right? Because it's so extreme.
Yeah, it was so extreme, and I had to wait. I was like, let me see how many of those I have. 1, 2, 3. Right? We have all the above, and so I'm trying to break this. Right? I said, hey man, and it's only two. We had to work together. We were forced to work together as a team for the whole system. And then I said, hey, why don't we go out and get a beer or something? And he said these famous words. We laugh about it now. Famous words. Why would I spend my time with you? That was the sharpest cut I think I've ever felt in my life, and I've been stabbed in the shoulder. Okay, I was literally like, I didn't know, like, am I supposed to be angry, or I was emotionally unstable, right? So what I did was I decided to be different. And I tell people this, I decided to be new. I decided to not be the guy that's a butthole and take it and just take it at face value. And we worked together. And I ate 2 years worth of sushi. It was a lot of sushi, a lot of sushi. But we ended up being the best of friends. And what I learned from him, the beautiful thing about all of this, he was getting the same treatment I was getting. He learned all of his English from Austin Power movies. This is true story. And then he's learning from me as a Black American, showing him something different about Black America. Mm-hmm. I represented Black America for one man. And we don't know the power of our representation.
Sure.
So now that we represented, I worked it out, and I realized the biggest problem we had with each other is he didn't know me, and I didn't know him. Once we knew each other, he tells me he loves me all the time. A Korean man telling me he loves me.
What I really want to know is, how did you respond to when he said why? Because that was the start of it.
Oh man, when he did that, I had already decided in myself that I was going to be something different.
Mm-hmm.
So when he said it, my emotions were kicking in. Ego saying, get him, get him. Nobody talks to you like, get him. Ego, man, ego. And this is mono on mono.
Yeah.
Right? This is a measuring contest at this point. Who has a bigger cup? And it's like, here we go. But I decided, no, I own my ego. I will decide, I will use my ego to increase me instead of decrease me. I can use it to increase others instead of decrease others.
Mm-hmm.
So when I used it to increase, it actually increased everything. It increased so many things. I even stood up for him all the time because it was like, if people would talk behind his back about his accent, he had a very strong accent. And I was like, do you know this man keeps this stuff together? He's genius.
Yeah.
You just don't know him. And I started teaching them him. So the whole we had a women's center. I eventually throughout that year taught all those women who he was. And now he was able to go through just like me and feel comfortable because we were integrated.
Well, what's so beautiful about this interaction in this love story, I will say this bromance, is that it really reminds us the importance, though, of exposing yourself to seemingly different people, right? But at the core, you're talking about humanity, like you said. You both had gone through a lot of hurt, a lot of systemic racism, classism, all these kinds of things. And, when you put it that way and you fully tried to understand him, that he learned English from Austin Powers. I mean, can anyone just imagine, for those that have watched that movie, learning English from Austin Powers, and having Fat Bastard be your reference of American culture? This is what this person was facing. And so you're telling something that is so, so important, which is just be curious and get to know somebody and not judge them, no matter how harsh they may sound, because when there also is a language barrier, there's this misperception that the other person is stupid or incapable. But as I learned Korean for the past 5 years, I still speak like an elementary school student. And, I wouldn't want to be judged as stupid if I'm, in Korea and trying my hardest, right? But I think sometimes that often gets lost here and people start raising their voice as if that's going to change someone's comprehension level. um, this episode would not be possible without the support of the Gray Wall, which aims to provide men with safe spaces to examine their own wellness and open up about their mental health needs. Mental illness among men is a public health concern that begs attention. The Gray Wall is dedicated in improving social norms around mental health among men by firstly, enhancing education surrounding men's mental health and wellness. The Gray Wall was founded to provide extensive education and programs dedicated to men who are often overlooked in the space of mental health access programs. That is really a great example of you playing the role of a teacher, but that also takes a lot of work and patience on your part. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more on ways that you have legit addressed your mental health.
Well, the biggest thing, I started with therapy. So I went to the therapist, and this is what I tell a lot of people now, especially if you're going to a therapist, they need to give you a plan of action because you're there for a reason. You're not there to be there for 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
You need a plan of action. So, I was already ready for that. I made a plan of action, and then I attacked what I actually had problems with. Instead of opening my old wounds, I refused to let that happen in therapy. I was like, this is where we're going here. And I had the right therapist. That didn't last long. Once I had the right therapist, we had a plan of action, we're ready to go.
What was right about, quote unquote, right about that person? People ask me that all the time. How do you know when it's a good fit?
Well, with me personally, my therapist had finished experiences like me, right? So a lot of people, when you go places, they don't have a lot of finished experience like you. They they don't have much experience at all. They've been sitting at home or, doing nothing with their life for some time. So, but the ones with finished experiences, and you find out like this is this kind of person, this is how they survived. Like this is how they made it out of this victimhood. Those are the ones that, like, for me, it helped me with my trauma and my things to deal with. Once I realized my trauma, the one of the greatest things of all time that I tell all of my clients to do, anybody that works with me, you start volunteering. Volunteer, and the best place to volunteer is within your trauma. If you go to a battered women's shelter, if you've been battered, you're around friends, you're amongst hope. See, their faith, because they walk out their faith and said, I'm going to make it through, I'm going to do this, will provide you hope. And that's what everybody in mental care or mental health needs. They need hope that they don't have to be there anymore in that down, depressive state. So, like right now, I've been volunteering for the a big dog animal shelter, I think about 5 years now, 4 or 5 years. And seeing the animals and doing that and giving love to something that I can do it unconditionally and I don't have to worry about anything. Learn how to communicate and love again and have people depend on you, and be dependable. So it gives you accountability. Like I have to go there every Saturday morning. I don't choose to now. They depend on me, right? These animals need. So you learn how to give back. That is the key. It's the biggest. And then after that, or during that time, parallel, we all are built to judge people. We're all built on judgment, right? But what we have to do is learn how to judge with forgiveness,
and
right?
empathy.
Right. I learned my cruelty. I started looking at who I was like, I'm not the greatest of men. I haven't been a super guy. I was a mean dude, right? So in my cruel nature, I don't judge people through my cruel nature now. Of course, I could, when I'm driving through traffic and somebody cuts me off, yeah, I could give them the third finger, but I just give them the first one. You're number one, buddy. You know? And then I keep
like
my
that.
positivity up. I keep my vibes up. I keep the people around me up. I tell people I'm not here necessarily to be happy. I'm here to be great so that other people can learn and have hope to be happy.
I think you're also talking about just having that healing perspective with yourself, but also with others is something that we can continue to build community, build connections with people and animals. But the aspect though of giving back cannot be underscored enough because it does give you that purpose and accountability, as that is a theme, right? People, animals, organizations depend on you and they really look forward to your company.
Yes.
For some people, it is important to to address that trauma. And for others, it still needs to have that integration of what to do now. So I know that Dr. Megan mentioned that you mentioned you lost your father and you shared it very publicly on social media about the vulnerability and all those things. What gives you the strength to be that vulnerable to complete strangers?
Well, it was two major things. I don't believe in death. I believe that my father, he may have died, but as long as let him live, then he's living through your show right now to all of your followers. I will not let him die. I'm going to use what I've been given, whether good or bad, but use it for what's right to help other people and give them hope. That's the, like my brother with his death and the kidnapping and the murder and all of these things. This like, let me give it to the world because there's so many people dealing with the same thing. They may not have the tragedy that I had, but the pain still feels the same. The walkout still feels the same. So that's why people, I say it all the time, much life, because we've distorted what love is, but life comes with love. It's the essence, you know. And I make sure that nothing, like all of my suffering, things I've gone through, I use that and I grind all of that up to create medicine for everybody else. Here, drink my suffering and understand that I made it through. That way you don't have to wait that long. I don't believe that people need to be, mourning for years and years. No, let them live instead of letting them die and staying in a miserable state. So I push through with life on everything. If I lose something, then I lost it because it was something for me on the other side to live with. And that's how I stay focused and I do it with people. Even I don't care who you are. If I meet you on the street, it's a guy at the Publix up the road. Oh my God, he has the worst attitude of all time, right? He's horrible. He's horrible, mean little guy. So he's like, I hate it here. I hate this. I hate that. I was like, well, at least you have insurance. At least you have this. And I was like, and one time we got down to it. I was like, well, at least you're alive. And he goes, for what? I'm like, oh my God. So I looked at him. I was like, you know what, man? If nothing else, you're here for me to let me know that life is beautiful. So I'm going to come in here, and every time I come and see you, I'll come talk to you because one day you're going to look at life and be happy about it, and I'm going to be good. And if I'm not here, not my problem. Still going to be on you, but you're going to have to live a better life, and be happy about
That's a good way to put it. Again, not giving the middle finger. So healers are very, very prone to burnout. And so how do you pace yourself? How do you make sure that you are taking care of yourself when you're working with so many clients and so many people?
The number one thing, um, even in my process, my healing process, what I had to do was make time for me. I, um, and I decided like, hey, if I every morning I get up at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, right? So instead of getting up at 6 o'clock, I'm gonna get up an hour earlier. I get up at 4 o'clock every morning.
Don't call me. We're friends now, but don't call me at 4 a.m.
Girl, don't call me. Yeah, most people say that for some reason. And it's the best time to get up. I give myself an hour earlier, which gave me self-discipline, right? And I tell people all the time, just get up, set your clock an hour earlier for you. And then the stress, I had to start working out earlier. So I work out early in the morning, I get that out. And also, as soon as my alarm, I don't have an alarm that goes, wah, wah, wah. I do not start me with stress, right? I have reprogrammed my mind to just be like, da, 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 da. And when that little thing comes on, I get up and I don't put any social media into my head. I read a book on what I'm trying to achieve or something I'm trying to learn because that's the best part of the day. The best part is when you're fresh, your mind is wide open to receive, right? And I incorporated that for that's a daily routine, right? However, we all get outside of routine sometimes.
Sure.
So what I do is I try not to waste time. I catch up my time with time, right? So if I have free time, and then I'll do my workout right there so I don't have to worry about it later. or I just try to do a lot of things, and it keeps my mind going, keeps me busy. And then I make sure, here's your big thing, Dr. Stephanie. Ready? I make sure I rest.
It's so important. People, and I know we're talking about some very quote unquote simple like perspectives or thoughts, but it varies culture to culture how much people put into work, how much people put into rest and family time. And it's a culture, and I don't want to overgeneralize, but especially in the Bay Area, people are always going, they're always checking their email, they're doom scrolling, they're doing all this stuff, right? And how much are we taking away from really engaging and connecting with our families or our loved ones, or even in our volunteer communities?
I don't get caught up in that social media at night. I make sure I turn off everything. My room is black. I turn off. I don't even want to think about waking up, right? And if I do wake up, I do not plug myself back in. That's the key. When you stay plugged in, your mind gets used to that dopamine kick is so strong. You're like, oh, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. That's like people wake up first thing in the morning. Oh, Instagram. I needed that. Now I gotta get some coffee so I can wake up. You're like, what? So you have these little things where I've subtracted those items from my life so I can own me. And people don't understand, if social media owns you, social media owns your family. Like, get your family, turn it off, and it'll change your life. Just unplug.
Yeah. So one of the big questions that I had for you, because it sounds like it's changed over time, is what does success look like to you now?
Oh my goodness. I've thought about this so many times, and the best thing I can say is, whew, it looks like integration without independence. Like,
Can you expand on that?
I know, like everything I do, I'm trying to integrate people and get them to know one another without just like we're black, we're white, we're Asian, we're European, we're no. And if I can see that, like, just because you'll most people never see their greatness. Steve Jobs never saw the Apple Watch. Martin Luther King never saw the internet and all this stuff. You never see it. Einstein's theory, he never really saw it put into play. He never saw these things. And now, it's like, I'm just so happy to see one person get integrated in. And that is success to me, because you're like, yeah, you can't do this by yourself. You need a different person. You need a man. You need a woman. Your children need a father. Integrate back into your homes, reestablish connection. And when I see that, and I'm getting chills. This is how deep this is to me. When I see it in just one person, that's success.
Well, last week I interviewed Marie Antoinette, legit, that's her name. And I was like, how powerful is it? And even now, how powerful is it to have two people of color on screen? And in that case, two powerful women of color on the screen who we would have never met if not for this platform and this forum. And so what I really take away from it, you might know that I love BTS, but is that our very existence can really fight xenophobia, is what the leader of the group had said. And I really took that to heart, because by existing, by not shrinking ourselves, being afraid to take up space together it's so, so powerful. And so tell me more about where people can connect with you. I know that you're not on social media in the morning. I think I added you yesterday, so you didn't add me in the morning, which is reasonable. But tell me more about where people can find you, connect with you, and really join this movement that you have going.
All right, right now I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest. I'm on every platform right now. And for clientele with Kauri's, www.Kauri's Corner. That's those are the main spots. What I'm doing right now is at the beginning of the year, we're kicking off strong. I'll have another men's conference and things like that going off. And but doing those primarily on Facebook and YouTube to the educational platforms per se, and but keeping it going that way. And but there's many big. It's just getting bigger and bigger, and I'm very excited. I'm very humble with it, very thankful. But and even the people now just like to thank anybody watching, like, man, you guys have been great. This has been awesome. Thank you, Dr. Steph.
Thank you so much for being here. And, I think your bread and butter is really telling that story with your Korean bestie, because that just highlights so much of a powerful example. I had a visualization of how that went down, and I had a gut reaction as to like, how would I respond to that? And how, there's just so much to unpack with your experience. And the world is so lucky to have you being that person and that vessel to continue on these positive messages.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for saying that. It's not me, it's the God inside of me is trying to get out. So I'm just letting light shine on everybody. Yeah, just creating life, man. Just loving it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to support us for free by subscribing to our mailing list at colorsuccesspodcast.com. There, you will find our socials, YouTube channel, and all episodes on streaming platforms for great additional content. As Rob Heaps from Partner Track said, success is contagious, so come catch it.